If you haven't seen our Ironsworn show yet, we have a lot of cool terrain pieces in it. And my brother has been making a lot of those pieces of terrain. He made a really cool looking ent and a really awesome kind of Skyrim style cart. So I thought it was time that I contributed a little bit to the terrain craft. Today, I'm gonna make the cheese wheel. The first thing I did for this project was do my research. I didn't want to make an inaccurate model. So I looked in the refrigerator and saw some shredded cheese. I examined it closely. I found many things in the cheese. It inspired me, gave me a new sense of life. And I took this life lesson and put it into the build. Versatile, delicious, a cheese wheel piece of terrain can generally be used for any scenario you can think of. Now follow along closely, because this is not going to be an easy build. This is a very complicated piece of terrain, and it probably shouldn't be your first project. So my cheese wheel is going to be made out of a scrap piece of XPS foam. Now remember, it's important to keep a miniature model nearby for this project, just for scale reference. You don't want to make a cheese wheel that's too big or too small. So I generally cut out the shape of my cheese wheel with an X-Acto, and then I started sanding. Cheese wheels generally have a curve along their edge. Don't be afraid to look at photo reference in order to get it just right. And of course, remember to keep referencing your model for scale. Now I also decided to make a second wheel that would have a wedge cut out of it. I made the second wheel in the same way as the first, except I cut a small piece out. To fully smooth out the edge of the wedge cut, I used a very precise shaving tool, as you can see here. When I was happy with the shapes of my wheels, I coated both in Mod Podge to harden the foam. This will make them a lot sturdier. You're going to want them sturdy because you know you're going to be using these pieces a lot. Again, they're very versatile. And now it's time to paint. I started with a base coat of Army Painter Desert Yellow. I went for heavy coverage here. It's okay if the paint is a bit thicker than it normally is. It actually might add to the dry cheese effect that we're going for. And for my first highlight color, I used Army Painter Demonic Yellow. I think that's what that says. The bottle's a little effed up. But I dry brushed that one on pretty heavily, and you can really see the cheese starting to come to life at this stage in the build. And for my final highlight, I used Army Painter Moon Dust, which I dry brushed on a bit lighter than the last color. And after that, it was actually looking pretty good, and I decided to seek some advice from a wise sage.
So you wouldn't go beyond that? I mean, I think you may have gone a little overboard for cheese wheels. You could have just painted them yellow and called it a day. Instead, you decided to do multiple layers of dry brushing. Yeah, I wouldn't go beyond that if I was you. I think they look fine for what they are.
So I decided to add one more final layer of dry brushing of the moon dust mixed with a little pure white. And I called it good. Overall, this project took me about 20 hours to complete, and I think the final product really speaks for itself. The more time you spend on this, the better they're going to look, and you're going to want to spend a lot of time on it because remember, you're going to be using these wheels pretty often for pretty much any scenario that you do. And if you have any questions about the build, go ahead and leave them in the comments. If you want to see my cheese wheel in action, you can watch our Ironsworn show Table for Two. Thanks for watching.